All right, we are live. All right, guys. So today we have a very interesting guest. We have a truly multifaceted guest joining us. Someone who embodies the spirit of a modern tech leader, builder, and a thinker. He's a CTO coach, an angel investor, a prolific writer, and a black belt in Kotlin multi-platform. Our guest, Viktor Nyblom, brings a wealth of experience from co-founding an IT consulting firm that scaled over 30 consultants to serving as a CTO for a successful baby tech startup. He's also collaborated with high-performance teams at well-known companies like Spotify and Doktor.se. Currently, Viktor dedicates his time coaching CTOs, helping them navigate the complexities of leadership and strategy, and he's also developing his own projects, including apps like Ephemerdo and Backnotes. But beyond his hands-on building and coaching, Viktor is a respected voice in the tech community through his Nyblom.io blog and Viktor's weekly newsletters. He shares invaluable insights and actionable frameworks on leadership, team performance, product strategies, and personal development. Often drawing from his 2 decades of experience, he's known for his candid reflections, including popular articles like The 4 Stages of Startup CTO and The Power of Law of Focus. So get ready to do a deep dive into the mind of someone who is not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. And I personally know that's the case as well. Blending technical depth with strategic insights and genuine passion for teaching and sharing what he learns. And to add a little bit more, he was a CTO. He was my CTO at one point, and he is my mentor still. And now he is my good friend, Viktor Nyblom. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I hope I covered everything. This, for the past 4 years I've known you, don't think I've ever done an intro like that for Viktor. This is very interesting. This is very interesting.
Yeah,
So,
that was great.
Viktor, So Viktor, where are you right now? Where are you joining us from?
So right now I'm in Stockholm, Sweden. Here in my home office on Södermalm.
Nice. All right. So, just a little bit more background on how I know Viktor is through the baby tech startup that I introduced earlier, where it's called Baby Journey. So he was my CTO, he was my mentor, and he guided me into becoming who I am right now. And so mainly we work remotely. So right now he's joining from Sweden. So let's straight get to the point. Sri Lankan viewers, mainly I have Sri Lankan viewers, and they love to get into the point and they love learning things, and they are not much for the fluff. So give us a small insight on your first job, and this is the first job that you ever had. Give me a brief. Yeah.
All right. So my first full-time job was as a furniture delivery man. I think it was 20 years ago now. Because right out of high schools, I didn't have the grades to be able to apply for college. So my mom set me up with her friend who owned this little furniture shop. So I did that for 4 years. First year and a half as a regular delivery man, and the last 2.5 years as the warehouse manager / delivery man. Yeah.
All right. So delivery person, from delivery person to a tech giant. How did that first leap came to be? Like how did you make that first leap? When I say first leap, it's like what made you get into tech from delivering furniture?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to get clear is like the person I am today, the person you sort of introduced with all these like flashy stuff and known brands that I worked with. That was not the person I was 20 years ago. So as I mentioned, I didn't have the grades to be able to apply for college. And I didn't apply to college until the store I worked at went bankrupt. So I was sort of forced to do something with my life. Um, and the original plan was to start working as a project manager for Ericsson, right?
Oh,
As that was one of the large IT companies in Gothenburg, where I'm from. So the plan was go to Chalmers, study IT for 5 years. That's the program's name. More project management than programming, and then become a project manager. And then like the Swedish dream of getting a house, car, a dog, maybe a cat, and some kids, right? The problem is when I started Chalmers, my IT education, I quickly realized that there were so many other things to do besides studying. So I think it was year two I started working as an IT consultant. As the sort of student body at Chalmers has their own consulting company, and a friend of mine got me into the IT section of this consulting company, even though they usually only took in third year and up. So that's when I started learning about Scrum and Java and I don't know, Kanban, all these stuff, like running actual projects for actual clients.
right.
Yeah.
And then so you took the job at Ericsson, is it? Uh,
So I actually did work at Ericsson for a summer.
for summer.
So yeah. So between third and fourth year at university, I worked as a summer worker at Ericsson. I was supposed to build plugins for an IDE called Eclipse. I think it's still around.
Yeah.
Um, but that was sort of the go-to Java IDE back in the day. Um, but for some reason, my manager knew that I had done my bachelor thesis around an Android app that I built together with a team, of course. So he put me at a special assignment to build sort of a proof of concept app where I figured out which app used which IP and then sent it to the like telenode so that I could throttle the 3G bandwidth in real time on the per device. Um, so that was pretty cool.
I mean, you just used like, how do I put this? Yes, those are old tech, but you were able to articulate in a way where you use the tech at a ground level, at a scratch level, right? Where we right now we use, I can't even say that I know how to work with 4G, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
now, but
Well, I mean,
you
neither do I, to be clear, right?
sorry, what was it?
Neither do I.
Yeah. But you did. You
Yeah.
did. That's the fun part, right? So you came from moving furniture and then you learning your project management degree to moving into one of the largest mobile platforms back then with mobile hardware devices as well,
Mm.
which they are still similar as references. I think they moved into a different, they pivoted their company into a different strategy right now, I guess. Why shutting down,
No. Well,
right?
well, well, no. I mean, they sold their sort of mobile
Hmm. Yeah.
phone department to whatever, or shut it down. I don't remember. But they're still like top two in the world when it comes to telecom.
Yeah, telecom, yes, they're
There's
still the
like
best.
Ericsson and Huawei are competing globally.
So, given that you had experience working at a multi-billion company,
Hmm.
at that time, of course, it might be multi-million. But I don't know, is it or is it was it still a multi-billion company back then?
I don't know.
Not sure.
Well, I would bet it was a billion company.
Billion
Yeah.
company. And coming from that to opening your journey through one of your managers, opening you into Android, where you started finding that true love for Android
Hmm.
and starting to talk way too much about it and to becoming a CTO. So given that you have so much to offer and you have done so much and you still do, between juggling your CTO coaching, building apps with your significant other, and recently I had the privilege of testing out VAC nodes, and even Ephemerdo is out. Uh, Given that you frequently uh, post on social media to promote people, to promote um, coaching and to promote the industry, how do you find the balance to do all of that and take care of your cats?
Mm. So that's a deeper question than it seems on the surface, right?
Yeah.
And you're smiling because you knew I would say something like this. Yeah. No, but it's about priorities, right? So the first thing I do when I get up is to feed my cats. And it's not because they are like scratching me or whatever, right? It's because they are super important to me. So I take care of them first. And then I put on my coffee, I do my journaling, some meditation, probably go to the gym most mornings these days, and then I'll get to work. Um, yeah, and same thing when my girlfriend wakes up, I sort of drop everything to make her some coffee. Because if I do that, I know there's a high likelihood that her day starts great, and that's important to me.
And this is something that you would refer to as one of your offerings. It is energy management and time management.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
So one of the main reasons why I want to ask the question is so that something that you offer. It's just, I mean, we look at we look at work, or we look at whatever we do in just a single perspective. I know as humans we have evolved more from the industrialization, labor intensive work. We have evolved us to more being mindful right now, but something that everyone is a bit lost is how to be mindful, right? There's so many paths
yeah.
that we can take, and of course one path that you try to take in through tech is helping people manage their time and energy, and
Mhm,
becoming that is one of their offerings, right?
mhm,
And when we go to your portfolio website or Nybloom's service or LinkedIn, the first thing that I see is that, let me phrase it let me actually phrase it word to word so that I don't get it wrong, which is, having spent over a decade of building apps, teams, and companies, I now focus on coaching CTOs who want to go from good to great. Can you define what good to great is, or in your terms at
mhm,
least? And I know this is a very open-ended question, but just
mhm.
want to hear from you. I want the listeners to know what you can offer when you say good to great.
Yep, sure. So to me, it's about going from being a good manager to being a great leader, right? I don't see those as the same thing. So managing is just like making sure things get shipped on time, making sure everybody's working on the most important thing. Um, you get into the office on time. You have start your meetings on time. Important things, but only being a good manager isn't enough to achieve really big things. For that, you need to be a good leader as well. And leadership is about vision, right? It's about inspiring others. It's about coaching and getting curious to see how the person in front of you might solve a task in a different way that you had, right? And this looks a bit different depending on which stage you are, but like broad strokes, that's what it's about.
Got it. So, what I'm hearing, what you're saying is that how you can not only coach a person on their profession, but you can coach a person on their mindset as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because when I say leadership, like all good leadership starts with self-leadership, right? So that's why energy management is the first of the three E's in my model, as you need to sort of take charge of your own energy and your calendar so that you make space for all the other stuff, right?
Understood. Now, when you mentioned you have to take charge of your energy, you have to take charge of your calendar.
Mhm.
And I know you're a big advocate on managing your calendar very well. And we know that you love cal.com as well.
Yeah.
uh, wouldn't mind plugging it here. But given that managing all of these things, what does the other side of this looks like? Because now imagine I'm a viewer that I'm looking at. Well, forget about viewers. Like imagine I'm a person who wants to figure out, hey, am I a person who needs coaching? Do I need coaching? Like,
Mm.
am I the problem? Like, what does the other side of this CTO? Now, let's take in your sense, your coaching CTOs. What does the coach CTO and the not coach, like the other side of the coach, looks like?
Mhm. So it's kind of two parts here in your question. First is, do you need a coach? Part two is, do I need help to improve in my role? I see those as two questions because the answer to the first question, do I need a coach, is yes. Everybody needs a coach. And that's not my words, that's Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, right? The, both of them are very strong advocates for getting a coach. And if you look at like every high performance athlete in the world, like everybody has a coach, right? I work as a coach. I have two coaches right now. One to help me with my fitness journey and one to help me with my coaching journey. So even the coach has coaches. So that's it. Second, do you need help in your role? Well, if you go back to the calendar, because that's the most simple example. If you open your calendar right now, say you're a senior leader, and your calendar is sort of shot to pieces by a bunch of tiny meetings all over, um, then I would say it's likely that you need help, as you're probably feeling overwhelmed. And you're feeling overwhelmed because you're not sort of taking charge of your own time. You're letting other people's agenda sort of be pushed onto your agenda. And your calendar, you're keeping busy, so it feels like you're making progress, but you're making progress on other people's to-do lists, most likely.
So what I'm hearing is that you're not taking ownership of your own time.
Mhm.
So of course it's not that easy to put into words, or
Yeah.
else we would need courses. But I think it's a very what made me smile even more. I think even before when you used to tell me that uh, athletes have coaches, they
Mhm.
coach them, they just don't come to be right.
Yep.
Why aren't people in the industry, in the education industry or tech industry or any industry, not have coaches?
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean, they do. They do. That's the thing. But people don't talk about it.
please do tell.
So if you read the book Trillion Dollar Coach, it's about a coach. No, I can't remember the name.
Uh, he's the
Bill Campbell, Coach Bill Campbell. So he coached Steve Jobs. He coached Eric Schmidt. He coached Bill Gates. He coached a bunch of these like idols in the Silicon Valley startup space. And on top of that, you have like modern coaches like Joe Hudson and Matt Mockery doing the same thing, like coaching Brian Armstrong, the founder of Coinbase. Is it Coinbase? Coin
well, what was the
Coinbase.
name?
Coinbase. Yeah, Brian Armstrong, founder of Coinbase, right?
Coinbase, yeah.
Um, so they are getting coaches. That's the thing, but people don't know about it.
Do
But
you
people,
think? Sorry, yeah, sorry, you were saying?
I don't know what I was about to say. Lost it.
Probably my fault. But do you think that they are keeping it as a secret? Do you think that that gives them a advantage of sort? in the industry? Is that why they're keeping it as a secret?
No, I just don't think anybody asks them the question. Like, it wouldn't make sense at a press conference to like ask somebody who is helping you right now, who is helping you to figure out your thoughts, who is like giving you the hard feedback that your team isn't giving you. Like that's not something that you raise in a like a press conference, I think.
I guess that makes sense. But I've personally seen people ask weird questions, of course, but
Mm.
I haven't seen people asking. Sometimes I've seen people asking great questions, but I think we need to ask more good questions, great questions, I guess.
Mhm.
But given that coaches do exist, right, and then people do take coaching as this thing, and of course, you personally have coached good CTOs with products, good products that have come out, and like you said, even Campbell have trained Google to
Mm.
Microsoft, I guess.
Well, let me just stop you there for a second. So I think it's also important to differ between training and coaching, right? So a coach can train and mentor, but coaching isn't training or mentoring, if that makes sense. Right? Training is just here's how you do something, now do it 10 times in a safe environment. Mentoring is more advice, right? I do a lot of mentoring for free for people I like. Just give them advice. Coaching is sort of helping you to think in new ways. Right? So it's provoking you to think in different avenues.
So opening up your mind and letting you branch out in certain ways.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And it's like feedback and accountability as well.
so there's a lot that goes into this, and of course, if if people are interested, they can of course have like on Victor's website, which I will include in the video as well. You get a first call is free. Am I right?
Yep.
Right? The first call is free. Then you get to know more in detail what you will get in yourself into. But right now, just to understand this a bit more, now we know that we need coaches. That we know that there are coaches have been exist in the world, and even multi-million to billion people who have scaled the industry's products have had coaches. I personally myself had a coach, which is you. So if I were to ask the question of that personal growth is something that you can pursue yourself, right?
Mhm.
Something that we can do ourselves as well, or we can get someone's help, like a coach or even a life coach. And at the same time, how do I know that I need coaching? Because something that I've heard from people are that people need to be inclined, people need to be coachable. You know, they need to be
Mm.
keen on learning, they need to be keen on coaching. If not, it's hard to coach. And I know that you have a great saying for this as well, so I'm expecting that. And at the same time, how how would how would I know that I
Mhm.
need coaching? How would I know that I need to? Because it's not like I maybe it's not the right time, or maybe it has timings, it has right moments in order to get there. How
Mhm.
do I measure that? How do I see that myself?
Mhm. So I don't think there is a perfect answer because I believe in starting before you're ready. Uh, but I think most people who come to me, they feel that they are sort of stuck. They feel stuck. I don't believe anybody is truly stuck, but they feel stuck down here and they want to go here. And either they don't really know how, they've tried a few things, but nothing really works, or they just want to get there faster, right? Those are sort of the two base categories of people that approach me. And I think for it to work, you need to be open and you need to be willing to work on yourself. Because that's what it's all about. That's what coaching is, right? It's not me coming up with a perfect solution or perfect plan. It's me asking you a bunch of questions that will make you question your reality. And once you do that and you realize, oh shit, this is how the world looks, then the work starts. And it's you who need to do the work. And I think it's fun. I can't imagine not working on myself. But it's also hard work and it doesn't stop.
And these are coined as the aha moments.
Yeah. So that's one phrase. So that's my favorite part of the job. Basically, when I ask a question and you see how they just stop and look up for a bit, and it's like, huh. So it's not a oh wow you can see in the more high profile coaches. It's not like that. It's like a quiet recognition of oh shit.
And that sudden self-realization, like, why didn't I think of this earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
So going from understanding that you need this, even like start before you're ready, which is a really good line that you just dropped, and from part where you feel stuck and you know where you sometimes you know, even know where to go, and sometimes you even know how to get there, but you just don't know how to take your next step. And these are few indications of when you know that you would benefit off of a coach,
Yep.
right? So if you,
100%.
so given that. Given that this coaching industry, I would say at least it has not hit the 50% mark to the world. And when I say 50%, is just the awareness, the demand, and even the supply. It has not, I feel like it has not passed that level. I might be wrong. But I want to know why. Why do you think that people are not more inclined on getting themselves coached? Because this is coming from me because I don't see a lot of people getting coached by people. Of course, given that I have worked with people who had coaches and I have seen people who does that, but majority still is not aware of it. And why do you think we are at that state right now?
So coaching as a thing is fairly recent. I think the term coaching was coined in the 80s, mid 80s maybe. That said, people have been coaching and been coached for way longer than that. It's just that before coaching was a word, you just call it leadership, right? So if you think back to all the good leaders you've had, they probably don't give you much like specific direction. Rather, they ask you questions and they have you come up with your solutions yourself. That's coaching too. And I think in the leadership community right now, there is again sort of a push towards the more coaching leadership, which I think is great. Yeah. But if we talk about like specifically getting a coach, I think it's just not practical for everybody to sort of get a seasoned, experienced, really good coach. Like if nothing else, I'm kind of expensive, so it's not like economically feasible to get me as a coach for your whole development team, say. And it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense for me to come in and work on the managers, like CTO, maybe a team of engineering managers, and then through my work, I make them better coaches, and then they can take the coaching into their leadership and coach their teams, right? I think that is what we're seeing.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that coaching was there from even from back in where human evolution started, the civilization started. From
Mhm.
there, it might have been through different terms of leadership, different ways of doing
Mhm.
coaching that has lived through. But right now, what we are seeing is a much more niche market where coaching has become certain a way of a bit expensive thing, I would say, somewhat expensive, and it has become a niche market where it's now transitioning. The leaders who used to be leaders are not coaching anymore, and now we need coaches because the leaders who were supposed to coach are not doing that part, and now we need coaching. And
I also think it's like you invest more in like a more human leadership right now. So part of leadership training becomes coaching because that is like 100% human.
that means that we are sort of what do you call increasing the gap between us being human and us doing something. The gap is increasing a little bit. That it has increased, I would say, where we are being less human and more autonomous in sort of way, where now we have coaches who help us see in a more humanly way, and that brings us more productive, more output, more throughput into our lives, because we have sort of forgotten from industrialization where we did labor intensive work where you can just do a 9 to 5 and make a really good salary that can feed up to 3 children, 2 cars, and a really good vacation, right? That is how it used to be. And of course, at that time, we didn't need coaching because we had certain leadership that trickled down. But right now, probably we have come through years of working and years of industry revolutions, product evolutions, and now we again need proper coach or maybe a new method of leadership, which is what you are trying to refer here.
Yeah.
Does that mean that maybe back in civilization started where we something that stick was of course I don't want to go into detail on this, but religion is something that sticks still, right? Religion is still relevant in certain parts, even though if some people don't follow it or some people do follow it, but there has to be some truth in this, right? Do you think religion was a part of this leadership, part of coaching? Some religion maybe, but of course,
No.
if we don't need to go into details, it's a very sensitive topic. But just want to see if we can touch on the idea of long-term living constant.
Mhm. No, I don't. I don't think it's related to religion. I think priests can coach for sure, but religion is like instead of grounded in a need to understand the thing we don't really understand or have an explanation for the thing we don't understand. So that's sort of a separate thing. But I do agree with what you said about the Industrial Revolution. And I think that sort of period um, might have been an exception. I'm not a historian, so I might be wrong here. But it feels like making people sort of slot into factories and viewing them as cogs in a machinery sort of removes the humanity from them. And I think with automation, we've sort of forced people to move more towards knowledge-based work, which then logically should introduce a more human element again, because now it's work is all about people. Like even building software is mostly about people.
Of
Does that make
course.
sense?
No, it does. It does very well because, like, everything we build ends up on a human's hand. It connects with a human, and we sometimes separate the fact that we build the product, the human. We only see we build the product and the building part. We isolate that separately, and the human aspect of that is like taken away. That's basically
Yeah.
in tech terms, it's the user experience, right?
Yeah.
So how to think on that terms? Even CTOs sometimes don't see that, and I think you're more into that aspect of how to see from the user's perspective and how to build a good product that can scale up,
Uh-huh.
not just live throughout.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That said, So of course sometimes I'll be very honest here. I did a full research on you yesterday and today in preparing this podcast, and I came across things that I did not know for the past 4 years about
Interesting.
you. And well, yeah, I am embarrassed that that I haven't read all your blog posts, which I did very recently only. Something that came across, and I want to bring it up, was saying that you have said, which is 90% of startups fail.
Mhm.
Right? It was one of your blog posts that you have written. Uh, does that does that mean that we shouldn't? Of course, this is in the blog post, and I just want to bring this out so that you can explain.
Mhm.
Does that mean 90% of us should not attempt? Does that mean only
No,
10% succeed? Over to you.
no, it means that you should still you should still like go for it. Strongly believe like everybody should try to start at least one business. Um, but you should go into it with your eyes open, right? That it is if you're gunning for a like a unicorn startup, chances are you won't become a startup, or you won't become a unicorn, right? Because in Sweden we have it's 111 unicorns or billion dollar companies right now, and something like 300,000 registered companies in total.
Oh, wow.
There's like 100 out of 300,000 has a valuation of $1 billion or more. Note though that this doesn't include Spotify because Spotify is listed in New York.
Yeah.
Um, but it gives you a rough idea of how freaking difficult it is to reach that level. All right.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you shouldn't start it, but it means that you should be like clear-eyed going into it, and it means that you need to approach like how you build in a different way and test more things because you're sort of 90% guaranteed to get it wrong.
Mhm.
So once you get a clear enough signal that you are wrong, like face that fact and pivot or shut it down.
Pivot or shut it down. So, given that I myself was a is a software engineer. I don't know why I said was. Is a software engineer for the past 8 years, nine
Mhm.
years maybe. I've worked with a bunch of startups where I heard this word pivot a lot, right? Where
Mhm.
they have to pivot the product and go into something. And so most of the time, I've heard like pivoting doesn't work, and some of my startups that I've worked for has also failed, right?
Mhm.
So it the product, of course, was shut down, but you learn from so much from it. Given that these pivotings and these products being closed, and very recently I saw news about a AI company, I think it's Builder, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
something that it was a scam, and then they had to completely shut down. That of course is not a pivoting, that's a different way of looking on how to run your business. So the question that for to you that I have is that there's a textbook way of building a startup, right? There's a textbook way of running a business. Literally on textbooks, when you go to business
Mhm.
class or college and university, you learn that there are certain level of things that they teach you on textbook. Of course, it's going to be a stupidest question, but I want to ask stupid questions because I want good answers. What you're saying is that you need to have a better approach, you need to have your own custom approach. Does that mean that the textbook way is not the way to go about it? Because because 90% of these things are failing, yes, true, and most of them, let's say 50% of them, are following the textbook way of building a startup, running a business and everything, but they don't seem to be succeeding on it. And
Yeah.
while
First, my first answer will be a question, and that question is which textbook exactly? Because I've seen a few, let's just call it a few textbooks,
Right.
and one says build something small, try it, iterate, and one says spend 3 months developing your business plan and then launch, and then take it slow and methodical, right? So again, like which textbook are we talking about?
All right, let's hypothetically say that something that I know is the very basic of building a business where you have certain ABC things to do. Of course, not to go fast. Definitely not to go fast. Not to do something that is out of your domain, right? So this is keep it in your domain. Start slow, start small, and then scale up. It's like very basic pillars, right? So
Yeah.
if we were to follow something like that, and then that doesn't work, that keeps failing, what? Of course, you don't need to give us. It's hard to give a specific answer for this, but
Mhm.
what are these? What are these moments, or what are these specific ingredients to become that 10%? And what are these people in that 10% who scale up or win in startups? What is this magic thing or this magic formula that they use?
I think that's impossible to answer. I should also caveat this. I think I have a link to a source in my blog posts. So when I say fail, it's failing from a investment perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so it's break even or below break even returns, like negative, right? Um, doesn't mean the idea wasn't good or that it couldn't have become a good company. Just means that it was a terrible investment. Um, and I think it's impossible because one, the landscape changes all the time. I mean, if you look at Uber and their sort of hyperscale strategy, they did that before there was regulation around like the Uber model.
Right.
So if you tried the same thing today, you would have a bunch of regulation, so you would like have to adjust accordingly, and you would have a bunch of competition because you would have 10 other ride-sharing companies in the same cities. Um, so yeah, I don't think there is a sort of cookie cutter model, but I think one key thing that people need to remember when building companies is that you need to focus on building a good company, and that means focus on providing enough value and capturing enough of that value for yourself, which means getting customers. And I think that is what was forgotten between, say, 2019 and 2021 when valuations skyrocketed. And it will probably end up there again in, I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like that, because these things go in cycles, right?
Right.
Um, well, yeah, like just focus on like providing value. That's the simple answer that doesn't say much.
Of course, that what I heard was like the entropy of human nature, the randomness and how things change. You just
Mm.
seize that moment. You just be real, and you just give something that is actually with value to the people, and then you'll grow. You'll grow
Yeah,
with the community. You grow with the people,
yeah.
basically. Given that you're an investor sort, angel investor, I would say,
Uh-huh.
was, and something that you have noted on your investment blog post. Of course, the 90% startup fails was from investment perspective, which I didn't classify earlier. My bad.
Yep.
Another thing that you have written, and I've written it word to word, which is you will lose 100% of the deals you won't see.
Yep.
Right? Could you tell more about that, and then I'll ask a difficult question.
Sure, sure. So since most investments are bad investments, remember 9 out of 10 will be bad investments.
Right.
You need to see a lot of pitches to be able to get enough good investments to get your money back. So that's what it's about. So you need like exposure to a lot of deals, a lot of pitch decks, a lot of potential investments, a lot of companies doing a lot of things. So that's like I've invested in 15 startups or 16 startups probably. Don't do any investments anymore for different reasons. But like I invested in 16 companies because I know like at least half of them will like outright fail,
Yeah.
and like 30% of the rest, or another 30% will probably maybe almost break even, and then a few at the top will make me money, and one will make me a lot of money. And that's kind of how it's playing out right now. But I couldn't have like if I only invested in the first 15 I saw, then I would probably lose money on everything. Because I need to view a lot of cases to be able to sort of weed out the quality cases based on my criteria on my investments. Does that make sense?
It does, and the next question I will make it more sense is that, of course, you sort of knew a certain amount of information. You sort of had a gut feeling, I would say, intuition, and then sometimes you said that you made bad investments, right?
Yep.
Why? The difficult question is why did you invest partly knowing that it won't pick off? Is there some sort of value there?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, you never know in advance. That's the thing. So I
So,
made you never know in advance which will be a good and which will be a bad investment. So you make an educated guess
right.
and you make a bet on a case that you think will be a good investment.
And
And all 16 I believed to be good investments. I think all but one, I won't say which, but all but one, I made the correct investment decision when I first invested. One I had no business investing in, but that's a completely different story. But the other cases, like I genuinely believe that this could be a great company and a good investment for me.
understood. And maybe we can discuss on these companies more once the companies go IPO, maybe on a different video.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but,
Love to. Yeah.
yeah, but for now, we will keep it there because I want to come back to the coaching aspect of this. Because why I wanted to touch on this was to get an understanding that you are not just a person with an understanding of coaching or understanding of tech, but you have an investment perspective as well, where you do look at, if we zoom out, you look at businesses, products as a business point of view as well, right? Given
Yep.
that we have this multiple definitions of what how much time values and how much money values. Some from your experience, what I deducted was that time and money has somewhat the same value or even more, right? And given that you are a person who has touched both ends, and I see your eyes, I know you have your answer already, but it's just a person that you have already touched the tech industry and you have worked in companies and worked companies scale up, and you have invested in companies and done good investment decisions. What can you tell us now in terms of time and money, monetary money, like money that you can, the tangible money, where value wise, like does one pass the other, or are they at same level, or is it lower? Thoughts?
Like, do you mean for me personally,
Yeah, of course.
or what? I mean, I am fortunate enough to have started a business and made some money off of that business when I sold my shares. So I have the sort of luxury to prioritize my time right now over money. And I believe that will be the case for the rest of my life as well.
So, very short answer, but I know there's more. But it comes from. But what I'm hearing is that that you were fortunate enough to make that initial pot of gold for your life,
Yeah.
and then now that you're fortunate enough to value time over money. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So, do you think that in your industry, when you're coaching CTOs, that CTOs don't see that, or do they see that? Do they see the value between time and money?
Maybe, maybe. I don't know if that is like the. I don't think the money is the main driver for most people. At least not once you reach a certain level. Like money isn't that important anymore. Like when you have no money, like money is the thing that you need to worry about. Like you need to get to a certain level
Yeah.
as fast as possible. And what that certain level is depends on who you are, what you value, and where you live, right? But post that phase, it's like you have other motivations. Like one CTO I coached this winter, his main motivation for being CTO at this specific startup was that he wants to help people, which is a beautiful thing, right? So
Exactly.
part of what we worked with together was like how can he incorporate his own vision for his life into his role as a CTO and then make his sort of wish to help people trickle down through his organization and become part of the values which he leads with.
Right. So, so what you mean to say is that it depends on the situation, depends on time of your life or where you are at right now. That said, do you see when it comes to coaching CTOs, do you see a lot of CTOs who has thinking patterns like old thinking patterns, like legacy thinking patterns, right? So what you are teaching to CTOs is a mind shift, a new way
Mm-hmm.
of new thinking, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is the reality of it. If you try to like squeeze out what you are doing with these CTOs and how you are
Mm-hmm.
training them, do you see that there's a lot of legacy thinking CTOs, or do you train with a lot of new way of thinking CTOs?
I think most CTOs are sort of almost by definition curious and living partly in the future.
Hmm.
Right? So you wouldn't become a CTO if you aren't well, at least a little bit curious, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's pretty easy. That said, I like the phrase legacy thinking, and I might steal that because we do get stuck in old patterns and old beliefs that we create for ourselves. Right? So for simple example for me, I noticed a pattern where I hold back in sales calls and don't make the pitch and just keep meandering and have a pleasant conversation, but I don't get the sale. Right? That's sort of a pattern, a legacy pattern that goes way, way back. It's too long of a story to tell here, but it's like it goes back 25, 30 years, the origin of that. Um, and that also makes it interesting because once you start working out your own sort of traits, behaviors that sort of lay the foundation for who you are, then you can really start to make a plan for how you want to show up as a leader. I for one think that's super interesting. I don't believe there's like a mold for CTOs. I think everybody has the power to sort of shape the CTO role into something that fits him or her best.
And that's the beauty of being human, right? And that I think that's something that we have been discussing for the past few years, is that how the randomness of a human and how that relates to what you're doing, and how much people don't bring their own character into what they're doing is leaving them behind, letting them fall down, and that you
Yep.
should bring yourself, bring your characteristics into what you're doing. Makes it
Yep.
more beautiful, gives more passion to what you're doing, right?
100%. Yeah,
Agree.
I've had multiple conversations with CTOs now where they feel unsure about if they are right for the role. And I'm like, well, how can you make the role right for you? Like you don't adapt into the role, you adapt the role into you. And those are very, very different things, you know? Because if you start sort of forcing yourself into a box, you will by definition play small because you'll only play within the confines of the box.
And that's sort of like most of people, and I was one of these people a lot, was that scared, right?
Yeah.
People are scared to break out of the mold, or do something different.
Yeah.
Of course, in my case, if I were to share a bit about myself, is that I I automatically I was placed out of the mold,
Mm.
just because that I didn't do well in school. I actually didn't pass my advanced levels, right? And then I
Mm.
had to just pave my path on my own terms, and then I just zoomed out. I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And then there's like, oh my God, there's like a lot of more things that I can do right now,
Yeah.
right? So then I was like, why don't I just be myself? Then I met you, where you helped me guide myself, and then here we are, right? And that's a long way for, even for me. That's like a long way to go. Like so many things that I haven't seen or explored in life, which in terms of tech, I would say,
Mm.
which is which for me also, I think, how if we go about 20 minutes, how you explain that uh, learning and evolving yourself, treating yourself and feeding your curiosity, and that aha moments, that happiness that brings you when you work on yourself, is basically what you're trying to bring to the CTOs, or bring through your coaching.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's a lovely thing, right? So with that, I want to, another thing that you have explained on your blog post is something called the kindness trap.
Mm.
And this is something I know that you specifically teach coaches, where you coach, sorry, you specifically teach CTOs by coaching. Uh, the kindness trap, if you can just explain like very, very uh, little about it, what does that actually mean when it comes to our industry?
Hmm. So just FYI, I'm sort of running out of steam here, so we might want to wrap it up now.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So the kindness trap. So most most new managers and a few experienced managers have met. They want to be kind and want to be seen as kind leaders. So when their reports make a mistake or they don't live up to the expectations of the manager, they say it's fine, you'll do better next time, or they say nothing at all because they don't want to sort of be seen as unkind. The problem is that when you do this, when you hold back, like your report doesn't know what they should do differently. So they will make the same mistake again and again and again, and eventually you'll fire them because they don't live up to your expectations. Right? But the problem goes way back and it starts with you because you don't need to be kind in the way that you don't hurt them. You need to be kind by being clear.
Right.
So
So
so clarity is the kindness that they need, like the clear direction, the clear feedback.
that means that of course the if you hold back on your communication and if you hold back on your expectations, what you communicate to people that you're working with, and then basically you're planning to be disappointed in a way.
Yeah,
So
100%.
so just to come and wind down this conversation that we are having, one last thing, one big last thing that I want to put on you, and then of course this is gonna, I think, probably restart your uh, brain a bit, is that we've discussed we've discussed personal growth. We discussed how legacy coaches think. We discussed how you can identify yourself as a coachable person. We discussed how a business perspective looks and how it contributes, and how time and value, money value, and all of these things, that so many pillars, and there's even more that you have to offer, and even with the world to offer for everyone. It boils down to working with a team, right? Boils down to building a chemistry between the team and togetherness, to have that relationship that works well. Is it that you just work, like you have a job description, you just do that, then your product will become successful? Or is it the fact that you bring all of these things that we just had, we talked about in this podcast, plus even more? How do you bring all of that into a team and make it work with like building chemistry, togetherness, and all of that? Or is it just the fact that stick to your job description, the product will just scale up?
No, it's about seeing the people.
Sorry, what was that? Can you repeat again?
It starts with seeing the people. Like regardless if we're talking, if I'm a manager or we're talking about my peers or my manager, like seeing the person behind the job description, what drives them, how they like to receive feedback or how they communicate best, etc. I have this like manual of me that we set up my clients that is like basically a user manual for you, right? Because that's where it starts with the person.
Right.
So that's sort of the simple answer. And then everybody is different, so you need to sort of be a bit sensitive to who likes what, etc. But that's also part of the job, like seeing, if you see the person, you'll see what the person likes to do, and then the person can do more of it and become really good at it.
And what I'm hearing is that end of the day, there's no set rule book per se, but
Yeah.
it's the fact that someone like you or someone with similar experience will be able to see beyond the person or beyond that job description, to build that connection towards each other, and to build that chemistry together and fit the gears properly in that mechanical part where it all works together and you get the best outcome you can.
Yeah, for sure. I like there are best practices out there for how to manage, right? And they are best practices for a reason. Um, but they're also there to sort of create a frame which in you can act, and then you get the freedom to act within the frame, and then that's where you have the leeway as well. And once you have some experience, you can start make a bigger frame, and then a bigger frame, and a bigger frame. But like it's easy to say it's all about the people, but you also like people have traits, but you also need the tools, right? Those are complementary, not mutually exclusive.
The traits and tools, and the fact that you need to self evolve and
Yeah,
help people evolve.
exactly.
All right. With that statement, I would like to now wrap this up, and it has been over an hour. But of course, like I said earlier, go to Victor's website if you want his services. First call is free. And Victor, would you mind telling how accessible are you for coaching? And this is in terms of location and
Mhm.
industries and so on, of course. Over to you.
Mhm. So my ideal customer is a CTO with, say, 20 people in the team, and I work globally. I work online. If you're in Stockholm, happy to meet. If you're in New York, let's jump on a Zoom call. No problem.
All right, sounds good. All right, for the outro of this video, the podcast, if you were to give one piece of advice to new and the current generation, what would it be?
Hmm. Well, that was easy. Just be a little bit kinder than necessary.
A little bit kinder than necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you for being on the podcast. Hope to see you in the future, and have a good day.
Thank you, man. See you.